Good morning, everyone. There's 8 of us here. This is the New York Independent Redistricting Commission. I think we have a rather short agenda today. We are here to approve the 9th and 10th members of the Independent Redistricting Commission. According to the Constitution and the law, those two members shall not have been enrolled in the preceding 5 years in either of the two political parties that contain the largest or second largest number of enrolled voters within the state. Appointment of the final two commissioners will complete the composition of the commission. I will just briefly mention one of the new commissioners that we would like to have on the commission is Professor Ivelisse Cuevas Molina. She is an assistant professor of political science at Fordham University in the Bronx. She received her PhD and master's in political science from Amherst, University of Massachusetts Amherst. Her focus is on measurement and modeling of voter participation, voter turnout, with focus on Latino groups, their electoral influence and their mobilization turnout. So I will turn it to someone else who will speak about Mr. Brady.
Sure. I'll start. This is Keith Wolf. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to say on behalf of myself and I believe all the other members of the commission, we are looking forward to getting on with our duties. As everyone is aware, this commission was established as an independent commission under the state constitution so as to draw fair legislative lines. The voters asked for that through a referendum and it was enshrined in the state constitution. And we are happy to proceed with our duties today, as well as the things that we anticipate being important in the near future. And so with that, I would turn it over to Commissioner Nesbitt to speak about the next nominee.
Good morning, all. We're pleased to put forward the name of Ross Brady in nomination. Ross is a Brooklyn resident, has been a practicing attorney, educated at Hunter and Benjamin Cardozo School of Law. Ross currently is the temple administrator at the Union Temple of Brooklyn. His experiences include much community service, being involved in board number 11, Congregation Emmanuel, and has served previously as the New York City Districting Commission Commissioner. We're pleased to put forward Ross Brady's name. I don't know if that's.
I think it may be time for a motion before the floor with respect to the prospective nominees.
Yeah.
John, did you want to formally put someone in nomination?
Yes. Morning, commissioners. I'm honored to nominate Dr. Ivelisse Cuevas Molina as a commissioner of our New York State Independent Redistricting Commission.
Is there a second, Elaine?
Second the nomination.
All right, so I would move to appoint both Ivelisse Cuevas Molina and Ross Brady to the commission under Article 3, Section 5BA5 of the state constitution. Do I have a second?
You have a second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. I think we can record that as being unanimous. Any no votes? No. Very good. So Professor Cuevas Molina and Ross Brady, welcome. I don't know if you're listening. We hope to be working with you over the next year or so, and then some, getting these lines drawn fairly and independently. I think, unless anyone else has something else, I think the next thing on our agenda was the funding request discussion. Anyone wants
yes, I just think that we sent out previously a letter by email to the budget director and also included copies to our legislative leaders. And we still don't have any response with regard to funding for the commission. The Constitution is pretty clear that the legislature is supposed to establish appropriation for us to do our duty, and we have no funds to hire our executive directors and as well as any staff. And as such, it would appear that our efforts are being thwarted by some powers that be with respect to funding this operation. So unless we can receive funding for our operations, we are going to be hard pressed to go about our duties. And time is a wasting here, folks, as we all know. And that it is unfortunate that those funds that have been appropriated by the legislature in the budget have not been provided to us so that we can go ahead and proceed in a diligent fashion to meet our constitutional responsibilities.
Commissioner Winter, for benefit of the record, you referred to we sent out a letter, I think just so that everybody watching understands. That letter was sent on behalf of all of the 8 members existing of the commission at that time. Correct. And went to the budget director as well as legislative leaders.
Correct. Everybody was on board with that, but we, to my knowledge, unless any of the other commissioners have information to the contrary, we have still not received any information with regard to where the funding status currently exists.
Well, I know that I have not, hi, this is Elaine. I have not heard anything, but quite frankly, didn't expect a response. I think we have to make a decision about our next step. And now that we have done, I think, the critical piece, which is add the 2 additional members, I think if we come together, if we come together and present where we are to our new members, we are now a fully personed independent commission. And I would argue now this is the moment to go forward and request a meeting, a Zoom meeting, probably something like this, face to face, and find out what the problem is. Because we can letter until the cows come home, and that is not going to fix what I suspect are the embedded issues in getting an answer that's credible. But I think it's very difficult for us now in this public open forum to say that we sent a letter, but we need to go the next step to request a meeting that would then be covered under, I think, if I'm not mistaken, gentlemen, a meeting request from us would be covered under the open meetings law. And I think that makes us hard to ignore, doesn't it? What do you think? I mean, I'm about lettered out. I think it's time for us to up the ante. And now that we are formed, let us move forward in our open meeting status and request a meeting. That opens us up and puts us on the record as having requested the move forward. What do you think?
Well, first of all, we've been formed since the 8 members were appointed. We have been reformed, so to speak, by putting the additional 2 members on. However, that has really nothing to do with whether or not the appropriations were made available to us. And it would appear that that effort is being made to thwart our activity. And I am, disturbed by us being put in the position of not being able to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities with these census deadlines and the like, and without having any answer as to why these funds have not been made available so that we can go out and do our business. So I share with you, Elaine, that we're lettered out. There had been a lot of back channel attempts to try to find out where this money was. And all we've been told is that it is not there. So to that extent, I would share with you that whatever meeting we need to do or whatever efforts we need to do, but we can't do our job without having the ability to hire our directors. We have identified our co-executive director who we want. However, we have no funds to pay that person. And we would hope that you would go forward immediately with respect to appointment of your or recommendation of your co-executive director so that we can even move forward even faster. So with that, I agree. We all joined together with that request, and unfortunately, we have been met with silence with respect to how we're supposed to be funded to do our job.
let me just hop in here for a second. And Commissioner Winter, I agree with you, and Commissioner Frazier, I agree with you as well. Um, I think we can all agree that um, the lack of funding is not inadvertent, that it is intentional. Certainly, I would expect that the legislative leaders and the governor um, and the government in New York, whether it's the Secretary of State or anyone else who is overseeing funding for our commission, certainly knows of their responsibility to fund the commission. We also know we haven't been funded. So to that end, to the extent that we all agreed on sending a letter, I think it's our responsibility, especially when we meet in forums like this, to speak up and to speak with a united voice, that we expect that that funding is going to materialize, that we expect that we'll be able to begin the process of selecting and hiring and selecting our executive directors and hiring staff. Look, it's the last day of September. We have a job to do, and we all understand that we're well beyond where we should be right now. And I think, again, we should all together, unless there's anyone on the commission who disagrees with me and with Commissioners Winter and Frazier, frankly, we need to speak with a united voice, make a joint statement, and this is our opportunity here at a public forum to do that, and not necessarily ask for a meeting, Commissioner Frazier, but I think it's our responsibility to demand that the funds be placed where they're supposed to be, at our disposal, so that we can move forward and do the job that we were tasked to do. So I'll leave it with that. I don't think we're at a point where we should be requesting meetings. We're at a point where we need to demand that the money be placed in our hands so that we can hire the people we need to hire and assemble the staff we need to do what we were tasked with doing. Otherwise, we're wasting time.
Yeah, I would just like to add to the other commissioners' comments. It is undisputed that the state constitution requires that this commission be funded. It is also undisputed that the legislature has appropriated funding in this year's budget to do so. The only thing that hasn't happened is that the monies have not appeared. And so I agree with Commissioner Martins that we need to formalize the demand, respectful demand, that the money be placed at our disposal to do our constitutional duties.
Well, with the gentlemen, I'm all the way there. The question is, okay, in what shape does the formalized request take? Do we put together a budget request and send it to them and say, this is what we're using the money for? We want our money. We want it now. Do we go knock on the door and say we're here? Or do we actually, now that I think about it, do each of us make a phone call so that they know that we're coming and that we're serious, and that these are the steps that we're prepared to take to get our money released so we can do what it is we need to do?
Well, first of all, the statute and the Constitution state that the co-executive directors are to prepare a staffing plan and to submit that for our approval as commissioners going forward. We need to get our executive directors appointed ASAP so that they can put together a staffing plan. But we can't get the executive directors in place until we know we have the money available to pay them. So to that extent, we're a chicken and the egg, and we've got to get the funds released, and we've got to get our co-executive directors appointed.
I think
those
as
are
commissioners, we need to come together and agree on the initial staff lines. My understanding is there are 2 executive directors and 2 deputy directors specified in the statute.
No.
We're proposing a salary. No, you're saying that's not the case?
There are 2 executive directors proposed in the event that both parties are, in the event that the Speaker and the President of the Senate are members of the same political party. There are 2 co-executive directors. And those 2 co-executive directors shall prepare the staffing plans for the hiring of the staff commission, and that staffing plan is subject to our approval. That's all set forth in the statute clearly.
So initially, we need to come to agreement on the 2 initial lead staff persons are. And from a budgetary standpoint, what salaries are we talking about? I think that gives us a concrete number as the part one of that budget request to then push the envelope.
Well,
And we need to come to a meeting of the minds on that. We haven't had that discussion yet.
well, as I indicated before, we have identified who we recommend as being our co-executive director. You need to do that on your side so that we can move forward expeditiously. As soon as those two executive directors are put together, those two executive directors, again, prepare a staffing plan for our approval, and then we can go forward and get this thing rolling. But we have our executive director, co-director in mind. You guys need to get your executive director in mind, and then we can get going. So let's get that. The funding has to be in place, notwithstanding, so that the executive directors that we're proposing know that they can get paid.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement on next steps. I think we will work on, we're still formulating who we will want to appoint as a co-executive director. So I think let's look at that. Let's talk to our appointing authorities and reapproach the Department of Budget, and then we'll go from there.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the interim, we should be preparing, I know some people say they're lettered out, but I don't think that we've purported to give them any respective deadline as to when the money should arrive somewhere, or at least be positioned somewhere where it is available to the commission. I think it would be much easier to move forward if we move those things in parallel. And certainly, we can have another meeting sooner rather than later to move things forward.
Well, we have two new commissioners who will probably want to be involved in that process. So I think I agree that we should all discuss this and move forward together.
Should we not take the opportunity then to select a date for a future meeting rather than adjourning to an open date for concern that we need to actually have some continuity here? We do not have staff, we do not have executive directors appointed, so the opportunity to have people coordinate those meetings becomes very difficult. Now that we're all on, why don't we, as an interim step, pick a date? Whether it's
well, we're
2
missing
weeks
two
out or
commissioners
whether
though,
it's
Jack,
3 weeks
right?
out.
We're missing two commissioners though, Jack, right? So I think that would be my concern if we
Well,
choose a date. And,
I
and
think
then,
we have a
yeah.
quorum. Frankly, there are at least 7 of us here now that we're constituted at 10, and so we do have the ability to pick a date. And frankly, if they can't make it, as will happen from time to time during our process, 1 or 2 of us may not be able to make it. But I think the fact that we have 8 of us on right now is compelling. We should not, understanding that we have a funding need, we need the opportunity to move forward with staffing, we need to appoint executive directors. I'm just concerned that if we close this meeting today without having a date in place, frankly, it could be, a month, 2 months from now, and we're all emailing each other, trying to reach consensus on a date, even if we just use it as an opportunity to touch base, even if we don't get to a place where we have agreement on who our appointees are going to be. We should at least have the opportunity to come back in the absence of staff and keep the ball rolling and at least give everybody an update on where we are. So to that end, today's September 30th. I would suggest, again, unless anyone has a strong objection, let's pick a date, either the 2nd week or 3rd week in October, where we can all come back together formally and revisit these open items. Budget and staffing are critically important, and I think people need to know that we're working on that as we work on it.
I'd suggest October 14th, similar time.
Again, unless anyone else has an alternative that they'd like to propose, but I agree with you, Charlie.
I would suggest the last week in October. The middle of October is very difficult for me. I apologize, personal matters. So if we could do the 4th week, the third or 4th week in October, that would be a lot better.
Yeah,
So do
I agree with that. Rather than agreeing on an exact time, especially since the state constitution wants, looks to having two commissioners that aren't a member of either party. I'm kind of concerned about proceeding with, scheduling a meeting, knowing there's a real possibility they will be unable to make it. So I'd say let's aim for the 4th week of October, and we'll find it. Let's start scheduling a time now in that week. But let's not commit to a specific time or date.
I guess if it were up to me, I'd say let's do it next week, but can we have some consensus around the week of the 19th at a minimum?
Again,
Wednesday, the 21st at 11 o'clock. And frankly, if there are concerns about, commissioners not being able to make it, obviously, I think we can all be flexible in adjusting either the date or the time, but let's leave here with a specific date and a specific time. So I'll propose the 21st, which is 3 weeks from today at 11 a.m.
I would be in agreement with that.
I think we should move out to the end of October to give a number of commissioners the time to do the work that we identified earlier, coming up with proposed co-executive director and beginning to work through these budget issues.
I would propose the 28th. I would propose the 28th. Same time.
I think that's more realistic, and that's plenty of time. I think that gives our two commissioners more time to adjust their calendars. We want a full commission participating as we go forward.
So I don't know, maybe this is another alternative, assuming that both commissioners are going to sign the acceptance of their appointments. Should we have merely a status meeting next week to set the schedule on next steps so that we don't have to talk hypothetically with respect to our fellow new commissioners' availability? Rather than
Well, don't they need to sign their oaths of office? And if I remember right, that takes a bit of time, right? So yeah, I think for me, it took a couple of weeks to just because of the COVID mail situation for everything to go up and down. So.
Well, if I may, I'd like to support Commissioner Keith. I think that you're absolutely on point. And the people that we've talked to that we have ratified today are expecting their letters and they're expecting their process. One of the reasons that mine took me as long as it did is because I was caught completely off guard. They're not caught completely off guard. So I understand and appreciate the time, but I think that our greater time issue is the timing of getting our act together. And I would support Commissioner Wofford's recommendation. We do a convening of this fully formed group next week. I think, isn't that what you said, Keith? And then go to the end of October for the budget and administrative brainstorm discussion.
So
It
Commissioner
accomplishes
Frazier,
the same
are
thing.
you suggesting we meet a week from today
Yes.
at 11 o'clock?
Yes. Yes. And if for
I'll
circumstances.
second your motion, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Well, don't in terms of votes, don't we, now that the commission is 10, don't we need 7?
They haven't accepted their oaths of office yet. We're 8
Yeah.
at this point.
We have a quorum of 5.
So let's meet again next week at 11 o'clock. And we'll have a status conference.
That works for
Wonderful.
me. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we're adjourned. Is there any other business that we would like to discuss?
No, do we have to move to adjourn or can we just adjourn?
I don't know what we need to do.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.